Do not get in the car. The brakes have been cut," a girl shouted to the millionaire. Suspecting something, the millionaire began to investigate, and what he discovered left him in shock. The sun had barely risen when Emma woke up, her blue eyes shining with the typical curiosity of her 7 years. She jumped out of bed, eager to start her secret morning routine. With silent steps, Emma crept to her bedroom window, which overlooked the busy street. From there she observed the adult world, a fascinating and mysterious universe she longed to understand. Emma adjusted her brightly colored frames and pressed her nose against the cold glass, her breath fogging the surface slightly. "Something important will happen today," she whispered to herself, a habit her grandmother Margot found adorable. As every day, the street began to come to life. The local baker opened his shop, the smell of fresh bread floating in the air. The mailman started his route, and the first cars began leaving their garages. Emma watched everything closely, mentally cataloguing each detail. It was then that something unusual caught her attention. A man dressed in black, wearing a cap pulled down low over his eyes, approached a parked car. It was no ordinary car. It was the imposing black sedan belonging to Victor Durand, the wealthiest man in the neighborhood. Emma held her breath, her eyes wide behind the lenses. The man looked around, making sure no one was watching. He had not counted on the attentive vigilance of a 7-year-old girl. With quick, precise movements, the man crouched beside the car. Emma saw a metallic gleam in his hand. Was it a tool? A pocket knife? She couldn't tell, but she knew something was wrong. Emma's heart pounded as she watched the man work beneath the car. Minutes passed, feeling like hours to the young observer. Finally, the man stood up, pocketed the shiny object, and slipped away down the street, disappearing around the corner. Emma was paralyzed, her young mind trying to process what she had just seen. She knew this wasn't normal, wasn't right. Something inside her screamed that it was dangerous. Before she could decide what to do, Emma saw Victor Durand leave his house. Tall, well-dressed, and with an air of importance, he walked toward his car, keys jingling in his hand. Panic seized Emma. Without thinking twice, she opened the window and shouted with all the strength in her lungs, "Don't get in the car! The brakes have been cut!" Her voice echoed through the quiet street, making Victor stop abruptly. He looked around, confused, until his eyes fixed on the small figure at the window. Emma's shout drew everyone's attention. Neighbors rushed out of their homes, looking curiously at the scene. Victor, still stunned, stared at Emma with a mixture of surprise and disbelief. "What did you say, girl?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Emma, her face red with nervousness but determined, repeated, "A man in black tampered with your car. I think he cut the brakes." A murmur spread through the street. Some adults laughed, others shook their heads in disapproval. "What an overactive imagination," commented one neighbor. "Children and their stories," said another, rolling his eyes. Victor hesitated, his gaze shifting between Emma and his car. For a moment, Emma feared that he too would not believe her, but something in the girl's determined look made Victor pause to think. He had always prided himself on his business instincts. Now that same instinct told him to listen to this child. "First, better safe than sorry," Victor muttered to himself. Turning to the crowd that had gathered, he announced, "I'm going to call a taxi and have the car checked out. It costs nothing to be careful, right?" A collective sigh of disappointment rippled through the crowd. They had expected a more thrilling outcome. While Victor made the call for a taxi, Emma watched everything from the window, her heart still racing. She knew she had done the right thing, even if no one else believed her. Minutes later, when the taxi arrived and Victor departed, throwing one last intrigued look at Emma, the street returned to its normal routine. People went back to their homes and tasks, the incident quickly forgotten by all except for two, Emma and Victor. Emma closed the window and sat on her bed, hugging her knees. She was sure of what she had seen, and a strange feeling invaded her, a mixture of fear and excitement. Something told her that this morning was just the beginning of something much bigger. Outside, Victor's black sedan remained parked, holding a secret that would only be revealed later. A secret that would forever change the life of an observant girl and a skeptical millionaire, intertwining their destinies in ways neither could imagine. Victor Durand settled into the backseat of the taxi, his gaze fixed on the urban landscape passing by the window. At 55, with grey hair at the temples and sharp eyes behind thin-framed glasses, Victor was the image of corporate success. Yet, at that moment, his normally confident expression was clouded by worry. The girl's warning, Emma, he remembered, echoed in his mind. "Don't get in the car, the brakes have been cut." The words seemed absurd, a product of a child's fertile imagination. Still, something in that voice, in the conviction of those young eyes, disturbed him deeply. Victor closed his eyes, letting his mind wander to the past. He saw himself again as an ambitious young man, fresh out of college with nothing but dreams and determination. He remembered sleepless nights, sacrifices, tough decisions that led him to the top. His company, Durand Innovations, had started in a garage and grown into a technological empire. Victor smiled, recalling the day he signed his first big contract, his hands shaking over the papers. Since then, every victory, every acquisition, every innovation had propelled him higher. But success in business wasn't everything for Victor. As his fortune grew, so did his social conscience. Flashbacks of his philanthropic activities filled his mind, funding schools in underprivileged neighborhoods, sponsoring groundbreaking medical research, mentoring programs for young entrepreneurs. The taxi stopped abruptly, pulling Victor out of his memories. He had arrived at the trusted auto repair shop. "Mr. Durand?" exclaimed the head mechanic, Pierre, upon seeing him enter. "What a surprise! What brings you here so early?" Victor hesitated for a moment. How could he explain something so bizarre? "Pierre, I need you to check my car, specifically the brakes." Pierre frowned, intrigued. "Is there a problem, sir?" Victor took a deep breath. "This may sound crazy, but I received a warning that someone may have tampered with my car's brakes." Pierre's eyes widened. Without further questions, he immediately summoned his team. Victor watched anxiously as the mechanics worked, time seeming to drag. After what felt like an eternity, Pierre approached, his face grave. "Mr. Durand, I don't know how to say this, but your car's brakes were indeed sabotaged. If you had driven today..." The revelation hit Victor like a punch to the gut. The girl was right. Someone really had tried to kill him. How? "How is that possible?" Victor murmured, more to himself than to Pierre. The mechanic shook his head, equally perplexed. "It was a professional job, sir. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." Victor felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't a prank or a random act. It was a calculated attempt on his life. Thanking Pierre and asking for discretion about the incident, Victor left the shop, his mind in turmoil. Who would want him dead, and why? He began making a mental list of possible suspects. Jealous competitors, resentful former employees, dissatisfied business partners. The list seemed endless. Victor took out his phone, his fingers hovering over the keypad. Should he call the police? But what proof did he have besides a child's testimony and a mechanic's confirmation? And what if this was just the tip of the iceberg? No, he decided. Before involving the authorities, he needed to understand what was happening. Victor Durand hadn't gotten where he was without knowing when to act cautiously. His thoughts returned to Emma. That little girl, with her sharp observation, had possibly saved his life. Victor felt a wave of gratitude mixed with growing curiosity. Who was this extraordinary child? And what else might she have seen? Determined, Victor made a call. "Antoine, it's me. We need to talk. Something serious has happened." Antoine Dupont, his right-hand man and longtime friend, was the only person Victor fully trusted at that moment. Together, they would start unraveling this mystery. As he headed to the office to meet Antoine, Victor couldn't help thinking about the irony of the situation. He, who prided himself on his business intuition, his ability to foresee moves and anticipate problems, had been completely caught off guard. And his salvation had come from the most unexpected source, a 7-year-old girl watching from a window. Victor made a silent promise to himself. He would discover the truth behind this assassination attempt, no matter the cost. And when it was all over, he would find a way to properly thank that little heroine. The car stopped in front of the imposing Durand Innovations building. Victor looked up, observing the glass and steel facade he had built from scratch. It had always been his refuge, his pride. Now, for the first time, he wondered if the threats to his life might be hidden within those very walls he had erected. With a determined sigh, Victor straightened his shoulders and walked toward the entrance. The day had only just begun, and he had a mystery to solve. A mystery that had started with a brave girl's warning, and which, Victor suspected, would lead him to confront truths he might prefer not to know. As the elevator doors closed behind him, Victor couldn't help a shiver. His instincts told him that nothing in his life would ever be the same after today. The hunt was on, and Victor Durand was determined to find out who was behind this dark plot, no matter where the search led him. Victor Durand's office buzzed with the usual Monday morning activity, but the businessman barely noticed the hubbub around him. Sitting in his leather chair, he drummed his fingers on the mahogany desk. His mind focused on a single mission: finding Emma, the girl who might have saved his life. "Antoine," Victor called his assistant over the intercom, "I need you to find out everything you can about a girl named Emma. She lives on my street, about 7 years old. Brown hair, wears glasses. Antoine, always efficient, asked no questions. Consider it done, sir." While he waited, Victor couldn't stop thinking about the incident. How had such a young child noticed something no adult had? And why would someone want him dead? The questions swirled in his mind, each bringing more unease than the last. Hours later, Antoine entered the office, a folder in hand. "Sir, I found the girl, Emma Leroy, 7 years old, lives with her grandmother, Margot Leroy, 62, a retired teacher." Victor took the folder eagerly. Inside was a photo of Emma, curious eyes behind colorful glasses, a shy smile on her lips. Something in that image touched Victor deeply. "Margot Leroy," Victor murmured, reading the file. "Widow, raising her granddaughter alone, respected in the community." He looked at Antoine. "We need to arrange a meeting with them. Today." Antoine nodded, already picking up the phone. Victor knew he was asking the impossible, but he also knew Antoine always delivered results. Surprisingly, less than an hour later, Victor found himself driving to the suburban area where Emma and her grandmother lived. The neighborhood was modest but well kept. Simple houses lined tree-shaded streets. Children played on the sidewalks, and neighbors chatted over fences. Victor parked in front of a 2-story house painted a soft yellow. The front garden was a small oasis of colorful flowers and neatly trimmed shrubs. A discreet sign on the door read, "Leroy Residence." Before he could ring the bell, the door opened. Margot Leroy was a woman of medium height, grey hair pulled into an elegant bun, and sharp eyes reminiscent of Emma's. "Mr. Durand," she said, her voice firm but kind. "Please come in. Emma is eager to meet you." Victor followed Margot inside. The interior was cozy, filled with books and family photographs. In the living room, Emma sat on the sofa, her legs swinging without reaching the floor. When she saw Victor, her eyes widened behind her glasses. "Hello, Emma," Victor said softly, sitting in an armchair facing her. "I wanted to thank you personally for what you did this morning." Emma looked at her grandmother, who nodded encouragingly. I just said what I saw," she replied, her voice small but firm. Victor smiled, trying to put the girl at ease. "And what exactly did you see, Emma? Can you tell me?" Emma straightened on the sofa, adjusting her glasses. Her voice gained confidence as she spoke. "It was very early. I always wake up early to watch the street wake up. I saw a man in black. He looked around and then crouched near your car. I kept watching because it seemed strange. He worked under the car for a while and then left quickly." Victor listened intently, impressed by the clarity of the girl's account. "Did you see his face?" Emma frowned, concentrating. "Not very well. He wore a cap, but he was tall and thin." Margot, who had been watching silently, interjected, "Emma has always been an attentive observer. Sometimes I think she notices more than most adults." Victor nodded, thoughtful. "Emma, have you ever seen this man before?" The girl hesitated for a moment. "I'm not sure, but—" She stopped, biting her lip. "What is it, dear?" Margot encouraged. "I think I've seen his car before, several times on the street. A small grey car." Victor felt a chill. If Emma was right, that meant someone had been watching him for some time. "Emma," Victor said, leaning forward, "you did something very brave and important. Thanks to you, something very bad was prevented." The girl smiled timidly, a blush rising to her cheeks. Margot placed a hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. "We're proud of her, but also worried. If someone really tried, well, something bad, could Emma be in danger for having seen?" The concern was valid, and Victor felt the weight of responsibility. "I'll make sure both of you are protected," he assured. "In fact, if you don't mind, I'd like to install a security system in your home, just as a precaution." Margot seemed hesitant, but Emma jumped excitedly. "Like in spy movies?" Victor couldn't help smiling. "Something like that, yes." After a few more questions and settling the security details with Margot, Victor prepared to leave. At the door, he knelt to be at Emma's eye level. "Emma, you are a very special girl. Thank you for being so brave and observant." Emma smiled, her eyes shining. "I want to be a detective when I grow up," she confided. "Well," Victor laughed, "I think you're already on the right track." As he drove back home, Victor reflected on the meeting. Emma's testimony was more valuable than any evidence he could have hoped to find. The unique perspective of a child, free from adult assumptions and prejudices, had captured something everyone else missed. Victor thought of his own childhood, how adults often disregarded his observations and ideas. How many times over the years could he have benefited from listening to fresh, uncomplicated perspectives of children? Arriving home, Victor looked up at Emma's bedroom window. A colorful curtain moved slightly, and he imagined the girl up there, watching the world with her attentive eyes. "Thank you, Emma," he murmured to himself. "You not only saved my life, but reminded me of something important. Sometimes the truth comes from the most unexpected sources." With that reflection, Victor entered his home, determined to unravel the mystery now surrounding his life, and grateful to have found such an unlikely yet valuable ally in a 7-year-old detective. The Leroy family's living room was bathed in the golden light of late afternoon when Victor Durand settled back into the armchair, a notepad in hand. Emma, sitting on the sofa with crossed legs, seemed a curious mix of nervousness and excitement. Margot occupied a nearby chair, her gaze shifting between her granddaughter and the businessman. "Emma," Victor began, his voice gentle, "I know we've already talked about what happened, but I'd like you to tell me everything again, with as many details as you can remember. Every little thing might be important." Emma adjusted her glasses, a habit Victor noticed she had when concentrating. "Okay," she said, her voice gaining confidence. "It was very early. The sun had barely risen. I always get up early to watch the street wake up." Victor smiled, encouraging her to continue. "First, I saw the baker opening his shop. Then the mailman started his route. That's when I saw the man in black." "What time was it, can you say?" Victor asked softly. Emma frowned, thinking hard. "My unicorn watch said 6:17. I remember because I thought it was funny. All the numbers were odd." Victor blinked, and surprised by her precision, he jotted down the time, impressed. "The man was tall, taller than you," Emma continued. "He wore a black cap, a black jacket and dark pants. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I noticed he had a short beard." "Did you see where he went afterward?" Victor asked, leaning forward. Emma nodded vigorously. "He ran down Oak Street, then turned left at the corner near the ice cream parlor." Victor exchanged a meaningful glance with Margot. The precision of Emma's observations was remarkable for a child her age. "Emma, dear," Margot intervened softly, "remember that when you first told me, I was a bit skeptical." Emma lowered her gaze, a blush creeping up her cheeks. You thought I was making it up, she murmured. Margot sighed, placing a comforting hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. I apologize, dear. It's just that, well, children often have vivid imaginations. Victor observed the interaction with interest. Mrs. Leroy, what made you change your mind? Margot gave a rueful smile. Her conviction. Emma never lied to me, and she insisted so much. And then, when you appeared confirming everything, well, I realized I was wrong to doubt her. Victor nodded understandingly. It's natural to have doubts. Many adults still don't believe Emma's story. Emma frowned at that. But I saw it. Why don't they believe me? Victor leaned in, looking directly into the girl's eyes. They're because sometimes, Emma, people have trouble believing things that don't fit what they expect to see. But I believe you. Emma's face lit up at these words. In fact, Victor continued, I'd like to ask something special. Emma, could you draw the man you saw, include all the details you remember? Emma nodded enthusiastically. Margot provided paper and colored pencils, and the girl set to work with intense concentration. While Emma drew, Victor took the opportunity to talk more with Margot. Your granddaughter is truly extraordinary, he commented. Margot smiled proudly. She's always been observant. Sometimes I think she notices things even I miss. That can be a valuable gift, Victor reflected, but it can also bring complications. Margot nodded, understanding the implied concern. I'm worried about her safety. If what Emma saw is really part of something dangerous, I understand your concern, Victor reassured her. I promise to do everything in my power to keep you both safe. At that moment, Emma held up her drawing, her eyes shining with pride. I'm done. Victor took the paper, his eyes widening in surprise. Although clearly drawn by a child, it was surprisingly detailed. The man in black, the cap pulled low, the short beard, all there. But what caught Victor's attention most was a detail Emma hadn't mentioned before. On the man's wrist, there seemed to be a large, flashy watch. Emma, this is amazing, Victor praised sincerely. This watch, are you sure you saw that? Emma nodded vigorously. Yes, it was big and shiny. I thought it looked nice. Victor felt a thrill of excitement. This could be the crucial detail they were looking for. Emma, you did an extraordinary job, Victor said, carefully placing the drawing aside. This might help us a lot. The girl smiled, clearly proud of her contribution. As he prepared to leave, Victor couldn't help reflecting on how often children are underestimated. Emma, with her sharp observation and precise memory, had provided more concrete clues than any formal investigation so far. At the door, Victor turned to Margot and Emma. Thank you again for your help. I promise to keep you informed of any developments. Emma, suddenly serious, asked, Mr. Durand, are you going to catch the bad man? Victor knelt to meet her gaze. I'll do my best, Emma, and thanks to you we now have a much better chance. While driving back home, Victor couldn't get the image of Emma's drawing out of his mind. That watch could be the key to unraveling the entire mystery. He picked up his phone, dialing Antoine's number. Antoine, I need you to run a search. We're looking for a tall, thin man with a short beard. And he wears a larger, flashy watch. Start with company employees and expand from there. Hanging up, Victor looked at the darkening sky. The innocent testimony of a child had shed light on a dark mystery. Now, armed with this new information, he was determined to discover the truth, no matter where it led. The sun had barely risen when Victor Durand entered the imposing Durand Innovations building. The lobby, normally a whirlwind of activity, was quiet, populated only by a few early employees and the cleaning crew. Victor nodded to the night security guard, who looked surprised. It wasn't common to see the CEO arrive so early. In the elevator, Victor adjusted his tie, his mind already on high alert. Today, he was not just the company leader, he was an investigator in his own domain. The idea deeply unsettled him. Reaching his office, Victor locked the door and turned on his computer. Before anyone noticed his presence, he wanted a chance to comb through the company's files without interference. Let's see what you're hiding, he murmured to himself, starting to browse the financial reports of the past few months. At first glance, everything seemed in order, but Victor hadn't built an empire by being naive. He knew that true irregularities often lurked in the subtlest details. After hours of meticulous analysis, Victor felt his stomach drop. There were discrepancies, small enough to go unnoticed in a routine audit, but significant when added up. Funds diverted, inflated contracts, unexplained expenses. How did this slip past me? Victor wondered, running a hand through his hair in frustration. A knock on the door startled him. "Mr. Durand," his secretary's voice sounded from outside. "Your executive team meeting starts in 15 minutes. Victor looked at the clock, surprised at how much time had passed. "Thank you, Marie. I'll be there in a moment." Closing the files quickly, Victor prepared to face his executives. This time, however, he would watch them with new eyes. In the conference room, Victor greeted each member of the team, studying their expressions, looking for signs of nervousness or guilt. His gaze lingered on one man in particular, Lucas Moreau, the chief financial officer. Lucas was tall and thin, with a neatly trimmed short beard. Victor couldn't help but notice the large, flashy watch on his wrist, a piece that seemed strangely familiar. "Good morning, everyone," Victor began, his calm voice masking his internal storm. "Before we start, I'd like a quick update on our finances from last quarter. Lucas, could you fill us in?" Lucas stood, nervously adjusting his tie. "Of course, Mr. Durand. Overall, we had a strong quarter. Our revenues increased by 7% over last year, and..." As Lucas spoke, Victor watched closely, not just his words, but also his body language. The man seemed more nervous than usual, his eyes avoiding direct contact with Victor. "And what about operating expenses?" Victor interrupted softly. "I noticed some interesting fluctuations." Lucas hesitated for a barely perceptible moment. "Ah, yes. We had some unexpected costs with the new R&D project, but nothing out of the ordinary for an initiative of that scope." Victor nodded, feigning acceptance, but his mind worked furiously. The fluctuations he had noticed went far beyond simple R&D costs. As the meeting continued, Victor noted other suspicious behaviors. Antoine Dupont, his right-hand man, cast furtive glances at Lucas. Sarah Chen, the chief operations officer, was unusually quiet, fiddling nervously with her tablet. When the meeting ended, Victor gestured for Lucas to stay behind. "Lucas, could you come to my office? I have a few questions about the financial reports." In the office, Victor closed the door and turned to Lucas. "Lucas, I'm concerned about some discrepancies I noticed in our accounts. Can you explain these numbers?" Victor slid a folder across the desk, watching closely for Lucas's reaction. The CFO paled visibly, his hands trembling slightly as he picked up the documents. I don't understand, Mr. Durand. These numbers seem in order," Lucas stammered, avoiding Victor's gaze. "Really?" Victor pressed. "Because to me, it looks like there are funds being diverted, considerable funds." Lucas swallowed hard, his face a mask of poorly concealed panic. "There must be some error. I'll check immediately." "Do that," Victor said firmly. "And Lucas, I want a full report on my desk tomorrow morning." As Lucas left hastily, Victor sank into his chair, his mind a whirlwind. The evidence pointed to an internal fraud scheme, possibly involving several high-level executives. But what was the connection to the sabotage of his car? Victor picked up the phone, dialing a familiar number. "Antoine, I need you to conduct a discreet investigation. Check recent activities of Lucas Moreau, Sarah Chen, and, well, the entire executive team actually, and Antoine. Be extremely cautious. We don't know who we can trust." Hanging up, Victor rose and walked to the window, observing the city below. The company he built with so much effort now seemed infested with shadows and secrets. "What else are you hiding?" he murmured, his reflection in the glass returning a determined stare. In that moment, Victor Durand made a silent promise to himself. He would unravel this web of lies and betrayal, no matter the cost. And when the dust settled, He would rebuild his company on foundations of integrity and trust. But first, he needed to find out how deep this conspiracy ran, and who, exactly, wanted him dead. With that grim resolve, Victor returned to his desk, ready to delve deeper into the shadows threatening everything he had built. Victor Durand's office was immersed in dusk's dim light as he finally leaned back in his chair, rubbing tired eyes. The last few days had been a roller coaster of disturbing discoveries and growing suspicions. Each new piece of information seemed to open Pandora's box of more questions and uncertainties. A soft ping from the computer caught his attention. Victor frowned upon seeing a new email from an unknown sender. Hesitant, he clicked to open it. "Dear Mr. Durand, your curiosity may cost you dearly. Some stones are best left unturned. For everyone's sake, especially those you care about, I suggest you reconsider your recent investigations. A concerned friend." Victor felt a shiver run down his spine. The message was clear in its subtext. This was no longer just about him. The veiled mention of "those you care about" made his mind immediately jump to Emma and her grandmother. Determined not to be intimidated, Victor printed the email and placed it in a secure folder. He needed to speak with Antoine, his right-hand man and longtime friend. As if summoned by his thoughts, Antoine knocked softly on the door. "Victor, still here so late?" Victor beckoned Antoine in and closed the door. "Antoine, things are getting more complicated than we imagined." He spent the next few minutes updating Antoine on his recent discoveries and the threat he had just received. Antoine listened intently, his face a mask of concern. "This is serious, Victor," Antoine said, running a hand through his graying hair. "You're dealing with dangerous people. Maybe we should involve the authorities." Victor shook his head. "Not yet. We have no concrete proof, just suspicions. If there's a leak, we could lose everything." Antoine nodded, thoughtful. "What about the girl, Emma? She might be in danger." "I've already arranged security for her and her grandmother," Victor assured. "But you're right, we must be extremely cautious." As they discussed strategies, Victor's phone rang. It was Margot Leroy, Emma's grandmother. "Mr. Durand, sorry to bother you so late, but Emma insisted I call. She saw something she thought you should know." Victor straightened in his chair, immediately alert. "What did she see, Mrs. Leroy?" "A car," Margot explained, her voice a mix of worry and skepticism. "The same grey car she mentioned before. Emma says she saw it parked near our house several times today, with a man inside watching." Victor exchanged a significant look with Antoine. "I understand. Please tell Emma I appreciate her observation. And Mrs. Leroy. Please keep Emma indoors as much as possible for now." After hanging up, Victor turned to Antoine. "It seems our little detective is still active." Antoine frowned. "Victor, this is getting too dangerous. Maybe we should back off, at least temporarily." Victor shook his head firmly. "I can't, Antoine. If we back off now, who knows what else they might do. No, we need to see this through." In the following days, Victor intensified his discreet investigation. He closely observed his employees, noting suspicious patterns. Lucas Moreau, the CFO, seemed especially nervous, often whispering into his phone and glancing over his shoulder. On one particularly tense afternoon, Victor noticed Lucas, Sarah Chen, and two other executives meeting in an empty conference room, their expressions serious and worried. Through the glass, he saw agitated gestures and tense faces, determined to listen. Victor positioned himself near the slightly ajar door. "We can't go on like this." Sarah's voice reached his ears. "Durand is getting suspicious." "Calm down," Lucas replied. "We have everything under control. The plan is almost complete." "What if he finds out?" asked another executive, his voice trembling slightly. "He won't," Lucas stated confidently, making Victor's blood run cold. "And if he gets too close, well, accidents happen, right?" Victor backed away silently, his heart pounding. The situation was worse than he thought. It wasn't just fraud. It was a full-blown conspiracy, possibly involving attempted murder. Back in his office, Victor found Antoine waiting. "Victor, you look like you've seen a ghost," Antoine commented. Worried, Victor sat heavily, reporting what he had just heard. Antoine listened in silence, his face growing paler. "My God, Victor," he finally said. "This is unbelievable. What are we going to do?" Victor looked at his longtime friend, feeling the weight of their trust. "We need to act, Antoine, but with extreme caution. We don't know how deep this conspiracy goes or who else is involved." Antoine nodded gravely. "Count on me, Victor. We'll unravel this together." As they planned their next steps, Victor couldn't help thinking of Emma. The courage and insight of that small girl had been the catalyst for it all. Now, it was his responsibility not only to protect her, but also to dismantle the corruption threatening his company and possibly much more. "Antoine," Victor said finally, "we need to be smarter than them. Install hidden cameras, tap phones if necessary. We need concrete proof." Antoine hesitated. Well, it's risky and possibly illegal, Victor." "I know," Victor sighed. "But what's happening here is much worse. Sometimes, Greeks, we need to cross certain lines to do what's right." With a plan in mind, Victor prepared for the battle ahead. The corporate shadows were deepening, but he was determined to bring everything to light, no matter the cost. As night fell over the city, Victor looked out his office window, watching the lights flicker in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Emma was also watching, her young eyes capturing details adults might miss. Victor smiled slightly, grateful to have such an unlikely ally in this fight against the shadows. The battle had only just begun, and Victor Durand was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Morning began like any other for Victor Durand. The familiar sound of the elevator announcing his arrival on the executive floor, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifting through the corridor. But as soon as the doors opened, Victor sensed something was off. The silence was oppressive. Where there would normally be the buzz of a busy morning, there was only a haunting emptiness. Victor walked cautiously toward his office, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. His office door was ajar. Victor never left it that way. With his heart pounding, he pushed the door open slowly. What he saw made his blood run cold. The once immaculate office was in complete disarray. Drawers opened, papers scattered everywhere. His computer turned on, the screen flashing an ominous message, "Last chance, Durand, back down now." Victor grabbed the phone, his hands trembling slightly. "Security, now!" As the security team rushed into the office, Victor tried to process what was happening. Whoever was behind this was getting desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. His thoughts immediately turned to Emma. If they had gone this far to intimidate him, what might they do to a little girl who had seen too much? Victor picked up the phone again, this time dialing a different number. "Antoine, I need you to do something for me, with maximum discretion." Hours later, Victor sat in a tense meeting with his security team when his cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Antoine. "Done. The family is protected. They think it's a new free home security system." Victor breathed a sigh of relief. At least Emma and her grandmother would be safe for now. While the security team combed his office for clues, Victor couldn't take his eyes off Lucas Moreau. The CFO seemed nervous, his eyes constantly darting to the door as if looking for an escape route. "Lucas," Victor called, his voice calm but masking his inner storm. "May we talk in private?" In the confines of an empty conference room, Victor watched Lucas squirm uncomfortably in his chair. "Lucas, I'll be direct," Victor began. "In recent days, I've uncovered some discrepancies in our finances, discrepancies that passed through you." Lucas's face paled visibly. "Mr. Durand, I can explain." "Can you really?" Victor interrupted, his voice sharp as a blade. "Because right now the evidence is not in your favor, and now, with this break-in..." Lucas swallowed hard. "Break-in? I know nothing about that." Victor studied the man before him. Lucas seemed genuinely frightened, but it was hard to tell if it was guilt or fear of being wrongly accused. "I'm giving you a chance, Lucas," Victor said finally. If there's something you want to tell me, now's the time. For a moment, it seemed Lucas would open up. His lips trembled, his eyes filled with unshed tears. But then, as if a curtain fell, his expression closed off. "There's nothing to say, Mr. Durand," he replied coldly. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to do." As Lucas left hurriedly, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that he'd missed a crucial opportunity. The rest of the day passed in a blur of emergency meetings, security checks, and frantic speculation. When Victor finally arrived home, exhausted and with his mind in turmoil, he found another surprise waiting. A voicemail from Margot Leroy. "Mr. Durand, sorry to bother you again, but Emma is insisting that I call you. She says she saw something important." Intrigued and a bit apprehensive, Victor returned the call immediately. "Emma," he said as soon as the girl answered. "What did you see?" Emma's voice was an excited whisper. "Mr. Durand, the grey car came back, but this time I saw the man getting out of it. He was carrying a black briefcase and entered Mr. Moreau's house." Victor felt his heart race. Lucas Moreau lived on the same street as Emma, a detail he had forgotten until now. "Oh, Emma, are you sure?" Victor asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Absolutely," Emma responded confidently. "And there's more. The man was wearing that big, shiny watch I drew." Victor closed his eyes, processing the information. This could be the proof he needed. "Emma, you did an amazing job," he said sincerely, "but I need you to promise me something. Don't tell anyone else about this, okay? And please stay away from the windows for a while." After reassuring Emma and thanking Margot, Victor sank into his armchair, his mind working furiously. Lucas Moreau was definitely involved, but to what extent? And who was the mysterious man in the grey car? The puzzle pieces were coming together, but the final picture was still a blurry mess. Victor picked up the phone once more. "Antoine, we need to talk. Things are moving fast, and we need to stay one step ahead." As he waited for Antoine to arrive, Victor looked out into the dark night. Somewhere out there, shadowy forces were moving against him. But thanks to a brave and observant little girl, he now had the upper hand. Danger was approaching, but Victor Durand was ready to face it. With unlikely allies and unyielding determination, he prepared to dive even deeper into the shadows, no matter the cost. The real battle was only beginning, and Victor knew the next moves would be crucial. With Emma as his unexpected sentinel and Antoine as his trusted right arm, he prepared for what promised to be the greatest challenge of his life. Victor Durand's office, once a sanctuary of order and control, now resembled the command center of a clandestine operation. Maps, charts, and photos covered the walls, connected by red threads snaking between them, creating a complex web of connections and suspects. Victor was bent over his desk, eyes burning with fatigue, as he sifted through another pile of documents. Antoine entered silently, carrying 2 cups of strong coffee. "Any progress?" Antoine asked, handing 1 cup to Victor. Victor sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Yes and no, the deeper I dig, the deeper the rabbit hole seems." He pointed to one of the charts on the wall. "Look at this. In the last 18 months, there have been a series of suspicious transactions, small enough to go unnoticed individually, but significant when summed up." Antoine whistled softly. "Millions. They diverted millions." Victor nodded grimly. "And it's not just that. These funds aren't just disappearing. They're being funneled into a network of shell companies." He stood, walking to the map on the wall. "Look at these connections. We've got links to at least 3 different countries, all known for lax banking laws." Antoine frowned, studying the map. "This is much bigger than corporate fraud, Victor. This looks like money laundering," Victor finished, "on a massive scale." Silence weighed in the room as both men contemplated the magnitude of the situation. "Who's involved?" Antoine finally asked. Victor pointed to several photos on the wall. Lucas Moreau for sure, Sarah Chen as well, and at least 3 other senior executives. He hesitated before adding, "I have reason to suspect powerful external connections." Antoine paled. "Politicians?" Victor nodded slowly. "Possibly. And if I'm right, that explains why they're so desperate to silence me. At that moment, Victor's phone rang. It was Margot Leroy, Mr. Durand. Emma noticed something strange again. She says she saw several different cars briefly stopping in front of Mr. Moreau's house over the last few nights, people delivering packages. Victor exchanged another significant look with Antoine. "Thank you, Mrs. Leroy. Please tell Emma she's doing an excellent job, but remind her to be discreet and careful." After hanging up, Victor turned to Antoine. "It seems our little detective inadvertently discovered a drop-off point." Antoine shook his head, impressed. "That girl has a gift, but Victor, this puts her in even greater danger." Victor nodded, worry evident in his face. "I know. We need to resolve this quickly, before anyone realizes how much she knows." In the weeks that followed, Victor and Antoine worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and connecting dots. Each new discovery painted a darker picture of the situation. One evening, while reviewing the latest information, Antoine made a shocking find. "Toy Victor, look at this," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "These numbers here, they match exactly the dates of some of our biggest government contracts." Victor felt a chill. "You're saying that they might be overbilling government contracts and diverting the surplus," Antoine concluded. "This isn't just corporate fraud. It's federal corruption." The enormity of the conspiracy was staggering. Victor sat down heavily, the weight of it all overwhelming him. "Antoine," he said slowly, "we need to be extremely careful from now on. If what we suspect is true, we're dealing with people who won't hesitate to do anything to protect their interests." Antoine nodded solemnly. "I'm with you, Victor." Until the end. In the following days, tension in the company became palpable. Victor noticed furtive looks and whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when he approached. Lucas Moreau seemed constantly on edge, his nervous eyes darting at every sound. Emma continued to be an unexpected source of valuable information. Her innocent observations of strange cars, late-night meetings, and mysterious packages helped Victor fill crucial gaps in his investigation. One afternoon, as Victor was in his office, Antoine burst in, his face pale. "Victor, I just intercepted a conversation between Lucas and an unknown number," he said, his voice low and urgent. "They're planning something big, something they called Operation Cleanup." Victor's heart raced. "When?" "Tomorrow night." Victor stood up abruptly. "We need to act now, Antoine. We can't wait any longer." He picked up the phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing. "It's time to involve the authorities, but we must be smart about it. We don't know who's trustworthy." While Victor made the call, carefully explaining the situation in chosen words to a trusted contact in law enforcement, Antoine stood guard at the door, ensuring no one surprised them. Night fell over the city, bringing a sense of inevitability. Victor looked out from his office window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Somewhere out there, Emma would be watching too, her young eyes unconsciously holding secrets that could change everything. "Antoine," Victor said softly, "no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to do something for me." Antoine approached, his expression serious. "Anything, Victor. Protect Emma and her grandmother. If something goes wrong, they're the key to exposing all of this." Antoine nodded solemnly. "You have my word." When the sun rose the next day, Victor Durand was ready for the fight of his life. The web of lies and corruption he had uncovered was vast and dangerous, but he was determined to expose it no matter the cost. As he prepared for the decisive day ahead, Victor couldn't help thinking of Emma, the little girl whose keen observation had been the catalyst for everything. He made a silent promise to her and to himself. The truth would come out, and those who had abused trust and public faith would pay for their crimes. With one last look at the office that had been the center of his investigation over the past weeks, Victor grabbed his briefcase and left, ready to face whatever fate had in store. The final battle was about to begin, and Victor Durand was determined to win, not only for himself, but for everyone who trusted him to do the right thing. The sun had barely risen when Victor Durand entered his office, determination etched in every line of his face. The past weeks had been a whirlwind of discoveries and suspicions, but today was the day everything would change. With purposeful steps, he approached the wall covered in photos, documents, and red lines connecting the conspiracy's dots. His eyes fixed on Lucas Moreau's photo. The once reliable CFO was now at the center of a conspiracy, threatening to bring down everything Victor had built. "Lucas," Victor murmured, "how did we get here?" A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Antoine entered, carrying a thick folder. "Good morning, Victor," Antoine said, his expression serious. "So I have the last pieces of information you requested." Victor nodded, gesturing for Antoine to join him. Together, they began reviewing the new evidence. "Look at this." Victor pointed to a set of documents, bank transfers to offshore accounts, all coinciding with our major government contracts. Antoine frowned. "And here," he added, pulling another document, "we have coded emails between Lucas and at least 3 other executives discussing something called Project Phoenix." Victor felt a chill. Project Phoenix. The same name Emma heard mentioned during that late-night meeting at Lucas's house. The mention of Emma made Victor pause. In recent days, the girl's observations had proven invaluable. Her innocent curiosity and keen eye had caught details that even experienced adults missed. As if summoned by his thoughts, Victor's phone rang. It was Margot Leroy. "Mr. Durand." Margot's voice sounded worried. "Emma noticed something strange this morning. She says she saw several men in suits entering and leaving your company, looking very nervous." Victor exchanged a significant look with Antoine. "Thank you, Mrs. Leroy. Please tell Emma to stay indoors today, all right?" After hanging up, Victor turned to Antoine. "They're on the move. We need to act now." Antoine, however, seemed hesitant. "Victor, maybe we should wait a bit longer. Gather more evidence. If we act prematurely—" "We have no more time, Antoine," Victor interrupted, his voice firm. "Every minute that passes is a chance for them to destroy evidence or worse." Victor walked to his desk, picking up a small device. "I'm going to confront Lucas now. This recorder will capture everything." Antoine looked torn between worry and admiration. "Victor, that's incredibly risky. What if he doesn't confess? What if there are others we don't know about?" Victor placed a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder. "That's why I need you here, monitoring everything. If something goes wrong, you'll know what to do." With a last determined look at Antoine, Victor left his office, heading to Lucas's office. Victor's heart pounded in his chest as he approached Lucas's door. Through the glass, he could see the CFO typing furiously at his computer, sweat visible on his forehead. Victor knocked and entered without waiting for a response. Lucas jumped, clearly surprised. "Mr. Durand, I didn't expect you so early." "Lucas," Victor began, his voice calm but firm, "I think it's time we had an honest conversation, don't you?" Lucas's face paled visibly. "About what, exactly?" Victor sat down, his eyes never leaving Lucas's. "About Project Phoenix, about the offshore accounts, about the massive fraud happening right under my nose." For a moment, Lucas looked ready to deny everything. But then, as if an invisible weight had fallen on his shoulders, he slumped in his chair. How did you find out?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Victor felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. "Does it matter? What matters is that it's over, Lucas. I have all the evidence I need." Lucas raised his eyes, despair flashing in them. "You don't understand, Mr. Durand. This is bigger than you think. There are powerful people involved. If I talk—" A sudden noise in the hallway interrupted Lucas's confession. Raised voices and hurried footsteps were approaching. Victor stood quickly. "Lucas, this is your last chance. Cooperate now and I'll do what I can to help you." But before Lucas could respond, the door slammed open. Sarah Chen entered, followed by 2 men Victor didn't recognize. "It's all over, Durand," Sarah said, her voice cold. "You shouldn't have meddled." Victor felt his heart speed up. The situation had spiraled out of control faster than he could have imagined. In another part of the building, Antoine watched the scene unfold through security cameras, horror on his face. He picked up the phone, his hands trembling slightly. "Hello? Yes? This is an emergency. I need to speak with Inspector Lefebvre immediately." As tension peaked in Lucas's office, Emma was at home, her observant eyes fixed on the window. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she knew something big and scary was unfolding. Determined beyond her years, she picked up her notebook and began recording everything she saw, determined to help Mr. Durand in any way she could. The net was closing in, but the battle was far from over. Victor Durand now faced not only a corporate conspiracy, but a fight for his own life and the truth he was determined to expose. The next hours would be critical, and many destinies hung by a thread. The silence in Lucas's office was palpable, laden with tension and expectation. Victor Durand, usually the picture of composure, felt his heart hammering as he faced the man he believed to be the architect of the entire conspiracy. "Lucas," Victor began, his voice surprisingly calm, "I think it's time we put all the cards on the table." Lucas Moreau, sitting rigidly in his chair, tried to maintain a facade of normality, but the slight tremor in his hands gave him away. "What exactly are we talking about, Mr. Durand?" Victor placed a thick folder on the desk, the sound echoing in the silent room. "First, we're talking about fraud, Lucas, money laundering, corruption on a scale I never could have imagined in my own company." Lucas's face visibly paled, but his voice remained steady. "Those are very serious accusations, Mr. Durand. I hope you have the evidence to back them up." Victor opened the folder, spreading documents, charts, and photos across the table. "Dwight, I have more than evidence at Lucas. I have the entire story. Offshore accounts, inflated contracts, Project Phoenix. I know it all." For a moment, Lucas seemed to waver, his eyes darting rapidly over the documents before him. But then, as if he had flipped a switch, his expression hardened. "This is ridiculous," he declared, pushing the papers back toward Victor. "These documents can be easily fabricated. You have nothing concrete against me." Victor felt a wave of frustration. He had hoped for a confession, not more denials. "Lucas, please. We've worked together for years. I trusted you. If you cooperate now, I can help." "Help!" Lucas interrupted, his voice rising. "You don't understand anything, Durand. There's nothing to confess because there is no crime. You're seeing conspiracies where none exist." The tension in the room was almost unbearable. Victor could feel his chance slipping through his fingers. He decided to change tactics. "What about the late-night meetings at your house? The suspicious cars, the mysterious deliveries?" Lucas frowned, genuinely confused. "What are you talking about?" Victor hesitated. He didn't want to reveal his source, but he needed to apply pressure. "I have witnesses, Lucas, people who saw suspicious activities around your home." A flash of comprehension crossed Lucas's face, followed quickly by something Victor couldn't decipher. Fear, guilt, or something else. "This is absurd," Lucas said, standing abruptly. "Am I being monitored now? This is harassment, Mr. Durand. I won't tolerate it." While the argument heated up in Lucas's office, the rest of the company buzzed with rumors and speculation. Employees exchanged nervous glances. Whispered conversations echoed through the halls. Something big was happening, and everyone could feel it. Sarah Chen, watching from afar, took out her phone and typed a quick message. "He knows. We must act now." Back in Lucas's office, the confrontation reached its peak. "You have until the end of the day to confess, Lucas," Victor declared, his patience finally exhausted. "After that, I'll expose everything publicly. Every detail, every suspicious transaction, every secret meeting." Lucas, his face a mask of indignation, replied coolly, "Do what you think you must, Mr. Durand. But remember, false accusations have consequences. You could end up destroying not only my reputation, but your own and this company's." With those words, Lucas stormed out of the office, leaving Victor alone with his thoughts and doubts. Victor returned to his own office, where Antoine waited anxiously. "How did it go?" Antoine asked, studying his friend's tired face. Victor collapsed into his chair. "Not as I hoped." He denied everything, Antoine, and he made it sound like I'm the crazy one. Antoine frowned, concerned. What about all the evidence, the documents? He hinted they could be forged, Victor sighed. And without a confession, well, it's complicated. The two men fell silent, the weight of the situation hanging over them. What do we do now? Antoine finally asked. Victor stood up, renewed determination in his eyes. We prepare everything for a public exposure. Tomorrow, at the board meeting, I'll present all the evidence. It's risky, but I see no other option. As Victor and Antoine began organizing the documents and preparing the presentation, across town Emma was restless. Something in the air made her nervous, a feeling she couldn't explain. The girl approached her grandmother, who was preparing dinner. "Grandma," she said quietly, "I think Mr. Durand is in danger." Margot looked at her granddaughter, surprised. "Why do you think that, dear?" Emma bit her lip, trying to put her feelings into words. "It's just a feeling, like something bad is about to happen." Margot hesitated, torn between wanting to soothe her granddaughter's worries and the growing sense that Emma might be right. "Maybe we should call him," Emma suggested, her large eyes framed by her glasses. After a moment of reflection, Margot nodded. "All right, let's call." But when they tried, Victor's phone went straight to voicemail. Back at Durand Innovations, Victor was so absorbed in his preparations that he didn't notice the missed calls. He was determined to expose the truth at any cost. What Victor didn't know was that while he prepared for his big confrontation, other forces were moving in the shadows. Lucas was not alone in his denial, and those behind the conspiracy wouldn't stand idly by while their empire was threatened. As night fell over the city, a sense of inevitability hung in the air. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change many lives. And somewhere, a little girl with glasses watched the darkness, her heart heavy with a premonition she barely understood, but which drove her to act. The next day promised to be a turning point, but no one could predict exactly how it would unfold. The truth was about to come to light, but at what cost? The sun had barely risen when Victor Durand entered the Durand Innovations conference room. The air was heavy with tension and expectation. Board members and top executives settled into their seats, low murmurs filling the space. Victor could feel curious and apprehensive looks upon him. With firm steps, he approached the front of the room, his folder of evidence clutched tightly in his hands. Antoine stood by his side, offering an encouraging smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began, his voice echoing in the now silent room, "I appreciate everyone's presence at this emergency meeting. What I have to share today will change the course of our company forever." He paused, his eyes scanning the room, briefly resting on Lucas Moreau, who seemed strangely calm. "In recent weeks, I've discovered evidence of massive fraud within our own company. Embezzlement, money laundering, inflated contract, the list is long and disturbing." A murmur of shock rippled through the audience. Victor began distributing folders with documents, charts, and photographs. "What you have in your hands is just the tip of the iceberg, but it's enough to—" At that moment, Victor's phone vibrated in his pocket. Normally he would ignore it, but something made him hesitate. Asking for a moment, he checked the screen. It was an email from an unknown sender. Subject, "The truth you seek." With slightly trembling hands, Victor opened the email. "Mr. Durand, you're about to make a terrible mistake. The person you're looking for is not who you think. Open the attached file. The truth will set you free, but it will also shatter you. A friend." Victor felt his heart race. He looked at Antoine, who nodded encouragingly, unaware of the email's contents. With a click, Victor opened the attachment. What he saw made his world collapse. Photos. Dozens of them. Antoine at secret meetings with shadowy figures. Antoine delivering packages in dark alleys. Antoine accessing offshore bank accounts. And most devastating of all, Antoine smiling alongside Lucas Moreau, both holding documents labeled Project Phoenix. Victor felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Memories flooded his mind, now seen in a sinister light. Flashback, Antoine. I need you to lead the internal audit this year, Victor said, smiling at his longtime friend. Antoine smiled back, a glint in his eyes Victor hadn't recognized then. You can count on me, Victor. I'll be thorough. End of flashback. Flashback. These contracts seem a bit inflated, Victor commented, frowning at the papers on his desk. Antoine placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. They're just the rising market costs, Victor. Trust me, everything's in order. End of flashback. Flashback. Antoine, what do you think of these strange transactions I found? Victor asked, showing him some documents. Antoine took the papers, examining them briefly. Probably a bookkeeping error. Leave it to me, I'll investigate personally. End of flashback. Victor returned to the present, his body cold and his mind in turmoil. The conference room was still full of executives waiting for his revelations, but now everything had changed. He looked at Antoine, who watched him with a mask of concern. Victor, are you okay? You look pale, Antoine said, his voice full of false worry. In that moment, everything became clear to Victor. Every piece of the puzzle fit, revealing an image he never could have imagined. How could you? Victor whispered, his voice barely audible. Antoine frowned, still keeping up appearances. Hey, what are you talking about, Victor? Victor straightened, his voice gaining strength. Ladies and gentlemen, I must apologize, but I need to postpone this meeting. New information has come to light that needs to be verified. Confusion and murmurs filled the room. Lucas Moreau, in particular, looked both surprised and relieved. Antoine, Victor said, his voice now cold and controlled, I'd like to speak with you in private. Now. The two men left the conference room, leaving behind a perplexed group of executives. In the hallway, Victor grabbed Antoine's arm, pulling him into an empty room. Explain yourself, Victor demanded as soon as the door closed. Antoine, realizing his cover had been blown, let the mask of concern fall. His face transformed into a cold, calculating expression Victor had never seen before. Oh, Victor, Antoine sighed, a humorless smile on his lips. You were always so brilliant in business, yet so blind when it came to people. Victor felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Why? Why would you do this? Antoine laughed bitterly. Why? Because while you built your empire, I was always in the shadows, always second in command, never the leader. I deserved more. So it was all about money, power? Victor asked, incredulous. At first, yes, Antoine admitted, but soon it became something bigger. Project Phoenix wasn't just about fraud, Victor. It was about reshaping the entire industry, with us in control. Victor shook his head, still trying to process the betrayal. And Lucas? Was he involved? Lucas? Antoine laughed. He was just a pawn, useful for diverting attention but disposable. Victor's mind spun. All his suspicions, all his investigations, all carefully orchestrated by Antoine. The girl, Victor said suddenly. Emma, how does she fit into all of this? Antoine frowned, puzzled. What girl? Victor realized Emma had been the only factor Antoine couldn't control. The innocent observation of a child had almost dismantled the entire scheme. Doesn't matter, Victor said quickly, not wanting to put Emma in danger. Antoine shrugged. Well, now that all cards are on the table, what do you plan to do, Victor? Expose everything. Destroy the company you built. Victor stared at the man he once considered his closest friend. Years of trust and loyalty reduced to ashes in minutes. You won't get away with this, Antoine, Victor said, his voice full of determination. Antoine smiled, a cold and calculated smile. I think you'll find I already have, Victor. The question is, what are you willing to sacrifice to stop me? With those words, Antoine left the room, leaving Victor alone with the crushing weight of the truth. Victor leaned against the wall, feeling the world spin around him, his entire life, all his work, all his relationships, now in question. As the sun rose outside, Victor Durand faced the darkest night of his soul. The truth had been revealed, but the price was almost unbearable. Now he had to decide his next move, knowing every choice would carry consequences echoing for years. With a deep sigh, Victor straightened himself. The real battle was just beginning, and he was determined to fight until the end, no matter the cost. Victor Durand's office, once a sanctuary of order and control, now resembled a battlefield. Papers scattered, evidence of an investigation gone unexpectedly and devastatingly awry. At the center of this chaos, Victor stood, his eyes fixed on the door, waiting. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made his heart race. The door opened, and Antoine entered, his relaxed posture a stark contrast to the palpable tension in the air. "You wanted to see me, Victor?" Antoine asked, a slight smile playing on his lips. Victor took a deep breath, gathering all his courage. "It's over, Antoine. I know everything." Antoine's smile faltered for a moment, then returned, now tinged with arrogance. "And what exactly do you think you know?" "Project Phoenix, the offshore accounts, the contract manipulation." Victor paused, his eyes narrowing. "The attempt to sabotage my car." Antoine laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, Victor, always so direct. It's one of the things I always admired in you." "Why?" Victor's voice was laden with emotion. "All these years, and I trusted you. We built this together." Antoine's expression hardened. "Built?" "No, Victor. You built. I just facilitated. Always in the background, always in your shadow." Victor shook his head, incredulous. "So that's it? Envy? Greed?" "Don't be so simplistic," Antoine retorted. "You think this was easy for me, betraying my best friend?" He paused, his voice dropping. "But someone had to do the dirty work, Victor. Someone had to ensure Durand Innovation stayed on top, no matter the cost." "At the expense of the law, ethics?" Victor demanded, his voice rising. Antoine shrugged. "The business world is a jungle, Victor. You should know that better than anyone. Sometimes you have to play dirty to survive." Victor felt a wave of nausea. "And the car? Did you really try to kill me?" For a moment, Antoine seemed genuinely shaken. "No, Victor. That wasn't supposed to go that far. It was meant to scare you, keep you distracted while we finalized Project Phoenix." "And Lucas?" Victor asked, recalling the man he had nearly falsely accused. Antoine laughed bitterly. Lucas was the perfect scapegoat, ambitious enough to seem guilty, yet innocent enough not to realize what was happening around him. Victor felt a twinge of guilt at how he'd treated Lucas. "And Emma, the girl who saw everything?" Antoine frowned, still confused. "What girl?" Victor realized Emma had been the sole unpredictable element in the entire equation. The innocent vigilance of a child had nearly toppled their operation. "Doesn't matter," Victor said, not wanting to endanger Emma. Antoine studied Victor for a moment. "You know you can't prove any of this, right? I was careful, Victor, very careful." Victor felt a wave of despair. Antoine was right. All the evidence he had gathered pointed to Lucas, not Antoine. At that moment, Victor's phone rang. It was Margot Leroy. "Mr. Durand, Emma insists on talking to you. She says it's urgent." Victor hesitated for a moment, aware of Antoine's curious gaze. "Put her on, please." Emma's enthusiastic voice filled the room. "Mr. Durand, I remembered something important. The man I saw working on your car, he had a birthmark on his neck, like a red stain." Victor froze. Slowly, his eyes traveled to Antoine's neck. There, partially hidden by his shirt collar, was a red birthmark. Antoine, noticing Victor's change in expression, instinctively reached for his neck. "Thank you, Emma," Victor said, his voice trembling slightly. "You've been very brave and observant." Hanging up the phone, Victor faced Antoine. "It's over, Antoine. Emma's testimony, along with all the other evidence. It's enough." Antoine, for the first time, seemed truly shaken. "Victor, you don't understand. Project Phoenix, it wasn't just about money or power. It was about revolutionizing the industry, putting us years ahead of the competition." "At the cost of innocent lives?" Victor asked, his voice filled with disappointment. Antoine sighed deeply. I never wanted anyone hurt, Victor. Things just got out of control. Victor felt a mix of anger, sadness, and, surprisingly, pity. Antoine, you were my best friend. I would have listened to your ideas, your ambitions. It didn't have to be like this. For a moment, Antoine's face contorted with emotion. Maybe I lost my way, Victor. The ambition, the desire to prove my worth, they consumed me. Victor stepped forward, his voice firm but compassionate. It's not too late to do the right thing, Antoine. Confess. Help us dismantle this. Maybe we can save something from all of this. Antoine looked at Victor, years of friendship and betrayal reflected in his eyes. For a long moment, silence reigned in the room. Finally, Antoine spoke, his voice low and defeated. What do you want to know? The following hours were a whirlwind of confessions, explanations, and revelations. Antoine detailed every aspect of the scheme, from the earliest financial manipulations to the latest plans of Project Phoenix. Victor listened to it all, his heart heavy with each new disclosure. The magnitude of the betrayal was crushing, but there was also a strange sense of relief in finally knowing the whole truth. When Antoine finished, both men were emotionally exhausted. "Size, what happens now?" Antoine asked, suddenly seeming much older and worn out. Victor sighed deeply. "Now, we do the right thing. We hand all the evidence over to the authorities. We clean up the company, no matter the cost." Antoine nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Victor, for everything." Victor looked at the man he once considered his closest friend. "I am too, Antoine, I am too." As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows through the office, Victor Durand faced the greatest challenge of his life, rebuilding his company, restoring trust among employees and partners, and most importantly, rebuilding his own faith in humanity. But amid all the darkness, there was a ray of light. Emma, the little observer whose courage and insight had been crucial in uncovering the entire plot. Victor made a silent promise to properly thank the girl and ensure her future would be bright. With one last look at Antoine, now in the custody of the authorities, Victor prepared to face the world outside. The truth had been revealed, justice would be served, and now it was time to rebuild. The path ahead would be difficult, but Victor Durand was ready for the challenge. With renewed integrity and hard-earned lessons, he would take his first steps toward a new dawn. The rising sun painted the sky in soft hues as Victor Durand entered the lobby of Durand Innovations. The building, once a symbol of his success, now seemed to carry the weight of recent events. Employees watched him with a mix of curiosity and apprehension as he headed for the main auditorium. Victor took a deep breath, adjusting his tie. Today would be the day of truth, the day to face the consequences and begin to rebuild. The auditorium was packed. Employees from all levels, board members, and even a few journalists crowded in, waiting anxiously for the CEO's words. Victor stepped onto the stage, silence falling over the crowd. His eyes scanned the room, briefly resting on Lucas Moreau, sitting in the front row with a tense expression. "Good morning, everyone," Victor began, his voice firm despite the emotion he held back. "The last few days have been challenging, to say the least. Today, I'm here not only as CEO, but as a man admitting his mistakes and seeking a new beginning." He paused, letting his words sink in. "As many of you may know, we uncovered a large-scale fraud within our company. What you may not know is that the main culprit was someone I trusted completely, Antoine Dupont." A murmur of shock spread through the crowd. "But Antoine's betrayal is not the only thing I must address," Victor continued, his gaze fixing on Lucas. "Lucas Moreau, please stand." Lucas stood hesitantly, confusion plain on his face. "Lucas, I made a terrible mistake by suspecting you. I let false evidence blind me and almost destroyed your reputation. For that, I offer my sincere apologies and not only reinstate you in the company, but also promote you to Chief Financial Officer." Lucas's eyes widened in surprise, a hesitant smile forming on his lips as the audience applauded. Victor continued his speech, detailing the new transparency and ethics measures to be implemented. An independent oversight committee, regular audits, and an anonymous tip line were some of the initiatives announced. "But perhaps the most important lesson I've learned," Victor said, his voice softening, "is the importance of listening to all voices, especially those we often ignore." He paused, a genuine smile lighting his face for the first time in weeks. "There is a special person to whom we owe a great deal. A young observer whose courage and insight were key to uncovering this entire plot. For privacy reasons, I cannot reveal her name, but know that we have a true heroine among us." In the audience, Margot Leroy, invited especially for the event, discreetly hugged Emma, pride shining in her eyes. "In honor of this young heroine," Victor continued, "I'm proud to announce the creation of the Young Observers Program. This program will offer scholarships and mentoring opportunities to children and young people who are exceptionally observant and ethical." Enthusiastic applause filled the auditorium. In the months that followed, Durand Innovations underwent a remarkable transformation. The new transparency policies not only restored investor confidence, but also attracted new talent who valued integrity above all. Victor Listi, in turn, found himself renewed. The experience had changed him profoundly, making him more attentive, more compassionate, and surprisingly more optimistic. One afternoon, a few months after the speech, Victor received a special visit in his office. Emma, accompanied by her grandmother Margot, entered timidly, her eyes shining with excitement behind her glasses. "Mr. Durand," Emma exclaimed, running to hug him. Victor knelt down, returning the hug with a warm smile. "Emma, it's so good to see you. How is our little detective doing?" Emma smiled proudly. "I'm practicing my observation skills every day, and guess what? I won a prize at the school science fair for a project on investigative techniques." Victor laughed, genuinely delighted. "That's wonderful, Emma. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll become a great detective for real." Margot watched the interaction with a gentle smile. "She's been talking about it constantly. It seems our little Emma has found her calling." Victor stood, addressing Margot. "She has an incredible gift, and thanks to her, many lives were saved, including mine." As they talked, Victor couldn't help reflecting on how a child's unique perspective had changed everything. Emma, with her keen observation and innocent courage, had been the catalyst to uncover a conspiracy that seasoned adults had missed. After Emma and Margot's visit, Victor found himself gazing out his office window, contemplating the changes of the last few months. Durand Innovations was not only financially stronger, but had become a model of business ethics. The Young Observers Program was already making a difference in the lives of dozens of talented children. Personally, Victor felt transformed. Antoine's betrayal had been painful, but it also taught him valuable lessons about trust, judgment, and the importance of questioning his own assumptions. He thought of Lucas, now thriving in his new role as CFO, bringing a fresh and ethical perspective to the department. Lucas's redemption was a constant reminder of how powerful second chances could be. The sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city. Victor picked up a framed photo on his desk, a selfie taken with Emma and Margot during a recent picnic. Emma's bright smile reminded him daily of the importance of honesty, insight, and courage, no matter one's age. Epilogue. 5 years later. The university auditorium was packed. A sea of anxious faces turned toward the stage. Victor Durand, now with a few more grey hairs but eyes still shining with enthusiasm, stepped up to the podium. "Welcome to the 5th-year graduation ceremony of the Young Observers Program," he began, his voice full of pride. "When we started this program, we dreamed of nurturing the next generation of ethical, observant leaders. Today, I see that dream has become reality." His eyes scanned the audience, landing on a particular young girl. Emma, now 12, sat up straight, her glasses framing eyes full of determination and curiosity. "Each of you," Victor continued, "carries the potential to change the world. Never underestimate the power of careful observation, a bold question, or an act of integrity." As Victor spoke, scenes from the last 5 years played in his mind. Durand Innovations had become a leader in ethical business practices, inspiring changes throughout the industry. The fraud case, far from ending the company, had become a turning point for something greater and better. Emma, for her part, had become something of a legend among program participants. Her story, though never fully revealed publicly, inspired other young people to be attentive observers and defenders of the truth. Margot, sitting beside Emma, could not contain her pride. Her granddaughter had grown not only in stature, but in wisdom and compassion. Emma's interest in mysteries and investigations had evolved into a passion for social justice and forensic science. As he concluded his speech, Victor looked directly at Emma, a silent understanding passing between them. "Always remember," he said, his voice charged with emotion, "that the truth often comes from the most unexpected sources. Keep your eyes, ears, and most importantly, your hearts open, for it is at the intersection of keen observation and deep compassion that we find the solutions to the world's greatest challenges." As applause echoed through the auditorium, Victor felt profound gratitude. The journey of the last few years had been challenging, but incredibly rewarding. From a crisis had been born an opportunity for real, lasting change. Emma, applauding enthusiastically, felt a wave of inspiration. She knew her journey was only just beginning. With the skills she had learned and the support of mentors like Victor, she was ready to face the mysteries and challenges the future would bring. As the ceremony ended, a sense of hope filled the air. Victor Durand, Emma, and all the young observers present were living proof that with honesty, insight, and courage, it was possible not only to overcome adversity, but to transform it into opportunities for a brighter, more just future for all. The final lesson was clear. In a complex and often obscure world, the light of truth can come from anywhere, even from the attentive gaze of a child. And once that light is lit, it has the power to illuminate paths toward a better tomorrow for everyone.